Okay, so we just went through the interface and showing you how all the different parts of the interface works. Now we're going to dive into how to set up your projector in a much more specific kind of way than the wizard would give you. So what we're going to do to start is we're going to go up to this menu up here, Settings, Projector Settings. And when you click on Projector Settings, you're greeted with this little window here. Almost anything you would need to do with the projector in order to set it up for almost any use that you have, you're going to be able to do from within this window. Now, to start off, I want to point out over here on the right-hand side, you have this thing called Test Pattern. These are a whole bunch of patterns that when you click through them will give you different looks at different aspects of the laser. We're going to go ahead and pick, let's say, this guy, which is really nice and complicated. There are a whole lot of lines and a lot of stuff going on. And we're going to go ahead and click Show It Now, and the laser will go ahead and spit it out. Okay, so we have our test pattern. Now let me show you this. In order to fit the laser into whatever size space you have this green box, which represents where the laser is projecting right now relative to its maximum size. All the white that's around the green box is what you would have if the laser were zoomed out to full size. So you can move this green box around inside the frame just by clicking and dragging, really simple. You can move it up here, you can move it down here, you can move it wherever you want. You can also, using these little handles, resize it, make it bigger or really, really tiny. Whatever you want to do, including blowing it out to its maximum size. Now, this is an important point. This is the maximum size as far as the software is concerned. Many lasers, including the Skyriders, have the ability to limit the size of the projection on the rear of the laser itself. So this is actually not the maximum size. The maximum size would be if I were to go here and blow this out really, really big, like that. That's going to give you your maximum frame, but it's also asking the scanners to work very, very hard. So to make the scanner's life a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and scale this down a little bit, and we'll get back to that in just a second when we talk about scanner speed. Okay, so that's that. I'm also going to go ahead and take this guy and reduce him back a little bit. Just grab one of these handles and take him back to about 50-50-ish. And go ahead and stick him in the middle of the frame there. Now, let's talk about scan rate. So in scan rate, this tab, we control how fast the scanners are going to try and go. This is a really, really important point. If you don't feel good about how to manipulate a scan rate, don't. The reason why is this. When you buy a laser, usually the scanners come with a K rating. They are 10K or 20K or 30K or 80K or whatever the case may be. When you get that K rating is usually done at 8 degrees. That's the industry standard, is 8 degrees. Well, in reality, if you're projecting 100 yards away onto a billboard, 8 degrees is great. If you're trying to cover a dance floor, 8 degrees is going to do absolutely nothing for you, and most people are using it out at 40 degrees or 30 degrees or whatever the case may be. If you're up fairly close and you're trying to skim out a wide liquid sky over people, you're going to be out at 40, 45 degrees, which means that you're going to be basically asking the scanners to cover 4 times more angular area or more than they were actually rated for. So if I've got 20K scanners, I'm asking them in the software here to scan at 20K, that's just about 20K, and I have it blown out at full angle, I'm actually asking the scanners to work much, much harder than they're supposed to. This is an important thing to keep in mind because scanners that are working too hard make too much heat. If they can't get rid of the heat, they die. It's very, very bad. And the single greatest problem in the laser world is when you have a scanner set that dies and you have a single beam that shoots straight out. That's probably the most dangerous you're going to get out of a laser. So being good to your scanners is really important for basic safety. So here's the rule of thumb. When you are going from 8 degrees to 16 degrees, so you're doubling the scan angle, you're increasing the heat by a factor of 4. Not 2, 4. So if I'm going from 8 to 16, that's 4 times the heat. I'm going from 16 to 32 degrees, that's 16 times the heat. It builds up really, really quickly. Now, if you're increasing your scan rate and you're going from, let's say, 20K to 40K or 10K to 20K, you're also going up 16 times the heat. It gets really, really hot really fast, and most scanners can't get rid of that much heat beyond what they're rated for. So remember, use the slowest scan speed that you can to achieve the kind of effects that you need. Now, people will say, well, how fast is too fast? Here's a pretty good barometer. I'm going to go back to size and position here. I'm going to blow this thing out as big as I possibly can. I'm also going to go to the back of the laser and make it a little bit bigger too. There we go. Now, that may even overfill your screen a little bit, but you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Check out what happens, because right now I'm pushing my scanners too hard. You notice the lines don't all meet up quite the way they're supposed to? Check out what happens if I pull back my scan speed and slow it down. All of a sudden, I start to get a little bit more flicker, but those lines are now meeting up. That means that the scanners are working closer to their intended speed. If I pull it down even further, they get really straight, but you get a whole lot of flicker. Alternately, if I push it up really high, you'll see that all of my lines are going to deflect and bend in and become less accurate. Well, if you're doing basic aerial patterns, this isn't so bad. If you're doing text and things of that nature, that's not going to look so great. So you want to try and make sure that you're using an appropriate scanner speed for whatever kind of system you have. I'm going to go ahead and reduce this back to its normal size. Now, lasers will run harder than they're supposed to, at least well-made lasers, will run harder than they're intended for a certain period of time. But you really don't want to do it too long. The rule of thumb is if you can hear your scanners whining, you're pushing them too hard and you need to pull your scan speed back. I want to show you one other thing in this window before I leave this tab is this guy. This is the XY invert. This will allow you to very, very quickly and very easily compensate if your projector is mounted upside down, or if, for example, you're going from a front projection to a rear projection. And just by clicking these little check boxes and then clicking OK, you can change the orientation of your laser really quickly, really easily, for whatever kind of show setup you have. Another point about this little green box is that, let's say I'm in a space that has a really low ceiling, right? I need to compress my image so that I'm skimming out at that required 3-meter safety clearance, but I'm not just shooting everything straight up into the ceiling. What's nice about the software is that I can take my projection, I can make it really wide and really, really short. I can put it wherever I want it to make sure that it's going to go out over people. And whatever I choose, whatever cues I choose, as long as it's going to this projection zone, are going to fit inside of that box. So you can basically take, for example, I don't know, the burger or the Statue of Liberty or whatever, and the software will use its vector capabilities and crush it into that box. So you can get really cool liquid sky patterns out above people using things that were never intended to be aerial effects. That's one of the ways software is really useful in situations where maybe you don't have an ideal setup. But using the combination of these tools, you should be able to set up the software for whatever size space you have so that your patterns look the best. It takes some fiddling, it takes some getting used to, but once you do, you'll be able to get really good content out of your laser for whatever you need to do with it. Lastly, I want to show you the color settings tab. We saw this a little bit in the quick setup wizard, but this is where you would go if you were all of a sudden going to change your laser to single color, or change it to 2-color, or change it to an RGV, a red, green, violet laser. Or if you were trying to change it from TTL to analog, or whatever the case may be. This is where you would do that. Nothing that you're going to do in this tab is going to mess up your laser. You can experiment with it and see if there's something in there that you like better, but generally speaking, use your manufacturer's instructions, follow those, and those will tell you what to choose in this tab to get the best results out of your laser. So this is a quick walkthrough of all the things you can do to try and set up your projector in whatever space you have. Stay tuned for the next videos in the series, and we're going to dive into all these topics in a lot more detail.